In the featured bout, sticking with the bantamweight division, Sean O'Malley defeated Petr Yan via split decision. To sum it up, the judges agreed on round 2 going to Yan and round 3 going to O'Malley. I looked at it. It's on MMA Junkie. Just go to judges' decisions. Where the judges were split was round 1. 2 went with O'Malley, 1 went with Yan. I rewatched it this morning. I'm sure you guys have, so I can't wait to get into this one. This decision, however, was disputed amongst many in social media. I'd say overwhelmingly towards the favor of Yan. So what I want to know, guys, is did you agree with the decision, and what was your biggest takeaway from the fight? All right, Mike, get the party started.
I don't know if I agree with it, but I understand the scoring for it. It was a really close fight. For anyone, we can say this a million times. I say it over and over. Close fights are not robberies, and this was a close fight, no matter how you cut it. You could say that you thought Petr Yan won all 3 rounds. That doesn't mean it's still not a close fight. All those rounds were pretty, razor thin, and I could see an argument for either side. I think it all comes down to how you want to score the first round. I think round 2 was Yan's. Round 3 was O'Malley's, and how do you look at that first 5-minute frame? And if you, depending on your outlook, I could say it was for either man. So I'm not going to sit here and say, like some others did on social media, it was the worst decision of all time. The judges are screwing up the sport. It was a tough one to call. And I think the deciding judge on that was Ben Cartilage, who is one of the better judges out there, in my opinion. So it was a really, really close fight. And I can't be too upset about how it ultimately came out. I think for the division, it's probably, for the best. I know Petr Yan's had his moment. He's still obviously very elite. Sean O'Malley getting to jump forward and kind of having his name inserted in that top 5 now. It's only going to be better off for, the momentum of the weight class. He's got that name and that following to bring into potentially a title fight, maybe a number 1 contender fight next time around. I know Dana White saying going into this event, this was 100% a title eliminator. He named off all 4 potential pairings, depending on who won the title fight, who won this eliminator. He was even willing to do Sterling versus Yan 3 if it came down. But as soon as the fight ended, he kind of walked it back and said, no guarantees. So they got some decisions to make on how they want to handle Sean O'Malley going forward. This is a fight based off this that you could do again between O'Malley and Yan. I don't want to see it right away, but I think you could do it sometime down the line and would have a storyline and some momentum behind it. So I don't think this is the worst outcome in the world for, unless you're Petr Yan.
All right, fair enough. How about you, Goes? Did you agree with the decision? And also, let me throw something in here. O'Malley said it's inevitable that he's going to be the UFC champion. Are you a believer, Goes?
Look, night of the fight, I thought it was a bad decision. I went back, I watched it 2 more times. I still feel the same way. I still feel like Yan won, but I do feel like it was close. Rounds were close, so you can't call it a robbery. But I thought it was pretty obvious that Yan had won. Okay. I mean, look at the first question that was asked of him, right? From another fighter in the post-fight interview. And then look at the way he even responded to that. You go to websites like MMA Decisions, right? 26 people unanimously agreed that Yan won that fight. You know how hard it is to get 26 people to agree on anything? If you were to bring up, is pizza good? I bet you there'd be 2 bozos that go, that sucks. 26 people agreed. So I feel like it's pretty safe to say, yeah, we feel like Yan won. It wasn't a complete robbery, but what are you going to do? This is what happens if you keep the fight close, right? But going forward, I think the one takeaway that we could take from this is I think we can all agree Sean O'Malley deserved to be there, for all the crap that he gets throughout his career. I think the kid did prove that he deserves to be at this high level. But I mean, look, you're a madman if you don't think Sean O'Malley is going to get the next matchup. That was predetermined way before. There's no way they're going to risk him against anybody else. He's one of the UFC's favorites. That's just how it's going to be. Going back at the PI today, they should be throwing rose petals at Sean Shelby's feet because he's the guy that kind of set all this up. Now, how long will it last? I don't know, because Aljamain Sterling, if you look at it matchup-wise, could be an absolute nightmare for a kid like Sean O'Malley. But Sean O'Malley, he's proven a lot of people wrong. So will he be champ one day? It could happen. But I think as long as Aljamain Sterling's champ, I think that's going to be difficult.
All right, I can't wait till the end. Nolan, give me a second here. I got to jump in. I'm like one of those little girls, and they're playing double dutch, and you see your opening. Now it's my opening. I got to tell you, I rewatched the fight this morning, and the first round is really what I was concerned about. And, man, it was close, fellas. But I honestly think that what it came down to was that O'Malley landed a cross that was so heavy on Petr Yan Petr Yan, that I think both guys and their takedowns, both guys and their leg strikes, the punches, their jabs, even the warnings of the fingers, it was all pretty even, but I think he just had the heavier artillery. So that's why I kind of saw it. Now, that, to be fair, on Saturday, I thought Petr Yan had won round one, but Nolan, take it away.
Yeah, I got to rewatch it again. I know we're going to have a judge is going to judge coming out about this, so maybe I'll give a more, score heavy focused analysis than that. But I will say that my biggest takeaway, since everything's about me, is that I was wrong. I was wrong about Sean O'Malley. I thought that he would not have a shot to be champion. I thought it was a pretty resounding no, and now I'm in a pretty resounding maybe. I think that he could do it. I think that he is an elite bantamweight. I think his rate of improvement, while maybe not every single fight we see a hugely advanced version of the one before, I think if you look over a stretch of time, he's gotten a lot better. I mean, imagine 2 fights ago, us saying that he would even put himself in this scenario, that he would be, in a debated decision that was high-level fight of the night against Petr Yan in a title eliminator sort of situation. I don't think many people would be siding with him. So good for him. I think he's, obviously he's had that effect, kind of like Conor McGregor. I'll never compare somebody completely to Conor McGregor, but he's had that attention, and with that comes the doubters, and with that it becomes a little bit muddied on how good he is. But I think now the biggest takeaway for me is we can say that he is an elite bantamweight, and that he could challenge for a title, and that it's not out of the question that he could win. Now, like George said earlier, the guy with the belt right now is a horrible matchup for him. I think Aljamain Sterling's wrestling, I think his top game, I think would be too much for Sean O'Malley. That's still an area that I think there's some question marks about. Styles make fights. We never know how this is going to play out. We don't really know if he's actually going to be next. And I guess we'll see who Aljo fights next, and who ends up ultimately having the title whenever Sean gets there.